put a little adhesive crap or some kind of pad over the screws. Very annoying. But like I said, I brought an assortment of tools. I even have some Torx drivers there because I wasn't sure. But these so far are just simple Phillips head screws. Nothing too exciting. Or not. Let's use the knife of separation. Okay, it was just clipped in there a little. There are two little clips on the side here and here that clip onto the cover. Right, I wanted to bring my trusty little Sony action cam in here, just so I can get close-ups of any parts that may be interesting inside of this thing. Okay, so in fact, I don't know if there's enough light anyway, so this might all be for naught. But there's you can see the circuit board in there, and I'm assuming this is a retainer ring. Oh, it looks like there's a whole plastic sub-assembly inside this aluminum tube. So this aluminum tube should, in theory, slide away from the plastic casing. So I think I'm gonna have to pop. I think this top must pop off. It probably has a similar arrangement to that with the two little tabs. Oh, wait, there it goes. There it goes. Okay, so that slides off. This is definitely just a tube of aluminum. I'm assuming aluminum. It could, I guess, be some other sort of alloy, but it's lightweight. It's definitely not steel. Oh, I didn't even take off the little protective coating on here. That's kind of irrelevant. So it's a plastic cage that holds the motherboard and all the rest of the components. Let's see if I can just... oh, this front board is actually attached. Okay, there's a screw in here. Let me try to get a shot of that for you. There's a screw in there holding that board in place, sort of retainer screw. So let's take this screw out. Sort of drop it out the bottom. Very tiny little screw. So now maybe that board will separate from the end of this. Yeah, now we're cooking. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, we have a wire going up to the top. This is the top of the unit. And I'm assuming this is the Wi-Fi antenna. I mean, or maybe this is a shielded wire, and I think actually this is the antenna that's on this. It's actually just a sticker, but I can see that it has something embedded in it. There's probably a little bit of metal just embedded in that sticker. Yeah, it's definitely an antenna. So let's see, we have a little connector here which goes to the little lithium battery for the BIOS, which is on the outside of the case. We have a little connector here, a little ribbon cable style connector. Oh shoot, I lost the retainer clip. All right, we'll find that eventually. So here, this is the front of it. It has the camera on the top and the power button on the bottom. And so the camera is connected via this ribbon cable right here. And this is for the power button and presumably the LED. And then, like I said, we got the little lithium cell there for the BIOS. Let me just find a place to put that. We'll throw that over there. Okay, which liberates the motherboard, which, yeah, this is definitely the wireless antenna. In fact, this is probably Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. It's got one of these... I forget what these connectors are called, one of these little tiny guys. So the cover comes off, put it there. So yeah, it's a nice compact little motherboard. Good arrangement, I guess. It's got a little daughter card in here that holds the power connector and the TF card slot. And I'm bringing this camera over here. Interestingly, this board is actually soldered in. I thought it would just be a connector, but it can't be removed without desoldering these connections. As far as the workmanship on this, all the soldered joints for the through-hole components and the surface mount components look very clean. I mean, this is actually a very neat looking board. It doesn't look cheaply made. There's no random flux as if, you know, this was soldered. This definitely wasn't soldered by hand either. a little bit of like flux on there. It's really surprisingly well done. Same with this side of the board. Yeah, and here's the little fan. Now, I should point out that basically the way the board sits in here, I think it was oriented roughly like this. Nope, I'm sorry. Connectors go out the back. So the board was oriented like this. And the fan would be right at the top there. And as you can see, well, it would blow air over this heatsink. The air wouldn't really escape the chassis. You'd get a little bit blowing out the sides of the heatsink, I guess. But that being said, it's actually very tightly mated to the heatsink, as one would expect. And there's very few channels on the vertical end. On the horizontal end is where most of the channels are. So really the air will be blowing out the sides of this into the USB connectors on the one hand and against the side of the case on the other. And I did see in the product listing that I believe the flash chips and the RAM are both underneath this heatsink. And it looks like there's a heatsink pad on there. It's not the heatsink goop like that compound they use. But let's remove the heatsink and see what's under there. First, let's disconnect the fan power connector. Oh wow, that's yeah. Again, I mean, many elements of this seem quality. It seemed like pretty high quality. This is a well-made connector. It actually locks in there really well, so the fan cable doesn't slip out. And they did actually bother to tuck the cable in there neatly, so that it wouldn't get loose and get fouled with the fan. So yeah, I mean, overall, I'm fairly impressed with the construction of this thing. I really thought the whole thing was made of plastic, not aluminum. It's got that whole subframe. Now, the reason I ordered this in the first place, I should point out, is just because I thought it would be cool to have. I don't have an HTPC in my bedroom right now. In fact, I don't watch much TV in my bedroom, but occasionally I like to. And by TV, of course, I mean content on the internet, you know, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, YouTube, of course. So I thought this would be a good alternative to like a Roku or some other device like that, because I really like having a proper computer. So let's see what we got here. We have, of course, the CPU itself, which is nice and tiny. There's a little bit of residue on here, a bit of something on it, but you can see here it made good contact. Let me just get this oriented. So it was oriented like that. You can see an indent where the CPU was. You can see an indent where I think this is the flash storage on that side, probably. Although that might be the RAM. I'll have to look at the chips. But the point is, one of them got really good contact where it's under this connector. And the next one really did not, and then there's no other contact after that. And this chip here only got partial contact. About maybe 2/3 of the chip were covered by the heatsink. Which I don't necessarily know that it's critical that those are connected to the heatsink, because usually they're not in an average computer. But then again, it could get pretty hot in here since this is poorly ventilated. All right, it's got Samsung chips on here. Let me just clean off some of this compound. There's a 4C chip. So that's actually a 32 gig chip. All right. So this is the flash chip right here. It's actually 32 gigs on that one chip, which is pretty nice. So that must be a relatively new chip. I mean, I know they go higher in capacity than that nowadays. But the point is they're not using really old tech. In fact, there's a manufacturer date on here. I don't know if this was the design date or the manufacturer date. It's probably design date because it's actually on the PCB. So November 11th, 2015. So this hasn't even been sitting in a warehouse for all that long. This video is being made in March of 2016, so it's 4 months old. If that was the design date, that's pretty new actually. So then, yeah, we got a bunch of Samsung memory chips. I'm assuming each is 512 megs. This has 2 gigs of RAM, and there's 4 of them. So yeah, not bad. So here we have, I think this is the wireless chip. I think it's doing both the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth. Videos, of course, on board with the CPU. I'm not sure what this little module under here with the heatsink is. You know what? Give me 1 second. I will find out. So, yeah, that's under that heatsink. That's the PMU. I'm assuming that means Power Management Unit. I could be wrong about that, but It's got a lot of capacitors and resistors all around it, so I'm assuming that it takes 5 volts in, so I don't know, that probably puts out 3 volts, 1 point whatever volts. I'm not really sure what the components in here use exactly. So yeah, this is indeed the wireless chip, and this little guy here is audio. This connector is for the camera. This connector here was for the power button and LED, and this little connector was for the BIOS battery. And of course here we have for the CPU fan, and the CPU, RAM, and flash chip fan. So yeah, overall, you know, like I said, good construction, but just not a very useful computer.
I said before that I'd circle back around to the network traffic from this computer, and I'm happy to say that there's really nothing to report. Well, I guess it would have made for a nice scandal on which to end the video if it were contacting tons of Russian and Chinese IP addresses, but all it talked to were IPs owned by Microsoft and various US-based CDNs. All normal stuff, in other words. I didn't truly expect this to be loaded with malware, though I suppose this really doesn't prove that it isn't, but at least initially it appears to be safe. So I guess the question on some of your minds is, should I buy this? And while I try to answer that, I'll show you some gratuitous shots of the computer and its internals for reference. The best answer I can give is maybe. I mean, like everything, it depends on what you'd use it for. The motherboard in this little guy could be really useful for an IoT or robotics project, or for a carputer or any other place where it could come in handy. The case is really well made and not unattractive, so if you very specifically need a tiny, nice looking and somewhat cheap computer for general productivity style work, then it's a good choice. However, with its Atom processor and integrated graphics, I would obviously not recommend it for gaming, aside from really basic 2D Flash style games of course, and I wouldn't recommend it as an HTPC either. I know that Firefox with full screen YouTube is one of the most resource intensive ways to watch video, and that this CPU should be capable of full screen HD video in general, but probably not with much of anything running in the background. And remember that the RAM and flash storage are soldered onto the motherboard, so you're stuck with 2GB and 32GB respectively for life. Lastly, while it's possible that I just got unlucky, the CPU fan was pretty out of balance and vibrated badly for its size, which means that it's not going to live a long life. Fortunately, the tiny Atom runs relatively cool, but then again there is not very good airflow through the case. And I don't know if this little guy is worth modding.
Alright, well, thanks for watching my review and teardown of the latest Apple Mac Pro in cylindrical form. No, I'm just kidding, this random ass computer from China. Yeah, if you want to see me take apart more stuff from China and give it a quick once over, by all means subscribe to my channel. I got more videos of this same sort coming out. And yeah,